#1 in the Ozarks. This is KY3 News at 5.
Raging water chases more people from their homes early this morning in parts of the Ozarks, with the threat of multiple rounds of heavy rain still to come.
Plus, slow-going drivers at a near standstill because of flooding on Interstate 44. The concerns Missouri's Transportation Department has once those waters recede. Also tonight,
it's just the fact that, wow, this is something we would have never have expected.
Now, one torn-up neighborhood in Waynesville is coming together after a day of flooding. Good evening, everyone. From KY3 News, I'm Jerry Jacob, in tonight for Ethan.
And I'm Lisa Rose. We'll join the regular anchor here at 5 o'clock. KY3's Emily Wood in just a moment. More heavy rainfall overnight, adding to the very dangerous flooding situation around Pulaski and Phelps County this morning. Even shutting down, as we said, a large section of I-44 because of the high water over the road between Jerome and Rolla.
We have team coverage of the devastating floods from Pulaski and Phelps County with Emily, Ashley Reynolds, and Linda Russell, plus our Storm Team Center Ron's tracking when the next round of rain will be moving in. Let us begin, though, with Emily tonight in flood-ravaged Waynesville.
Jerry, Lisa, we do want to start with an update on the tragedy that we've been reporting on since yesterday. We can now tell you that authorities have decided to scale back the search for the mother of the 4-year-old boy whose body was discovered in the floodwaters early yesterday morning. Of course, that search continued yesterday as well as today. Authorities now saying they are scaling it back. At this point, it is a recovery, and they are looking for her body. At that time, they say when they find her, that is when they'll release the identity of both the mother and child. They did find the mother's car earlier today, but they are yet to find the mother. This is the Ruby Doo, once again, where we started out our coverage last night, the overflow, I should say, of the Ruby Doo, where now it's just a bunch of muddy flood water starting to recede, and it's receding rather quickly. We've been watching it throughout the day. You'll remember just last night we were showing you this recreational complex. I was at least explaining that that's what it normally is. Last night, of course, it looked more like a giant lake. Well, you can see now the water has receded quite a bit here in the Ruby Doo Park area and is getting lower and lower as we go on through the day. Even over the last couple hours, it's come down quite a bit. Today was the first day that people here in the Waynesville area were able to go back inside their homes and see the destruction that was left behind. We can now tell you 30 homes are considered destroyed, as well as several businesses. Dozens more homes and businesses were badly damaged in this flood that no one expected in the Waynesville area. Tonight, the National Guard is on the ground, and they are helping with the recovery efforts. KY3's Linda Russell has more on the cleanup.
Here in Waynesville, floodwaters from the Ruby Doo Creek and the Mitchell Creek, which is back behind that tree line, have gone down some. So areas like this that so suddenly found themselves underwater early yesterday morning have been able to begin cleanup. Now, this is just one area, but there are several here across Waynesville. Folks are having to throw away pretty much all of their belongings. People here on this street are going through furniture, everything they own, and just having to throw them into trailers. But one good part of all of this, the volunteers are already showing up everywhere. Friends and neighbors and complete strangers are already helping out with the cleanup. At the Red Cross shelter at the St. Robert Community Center, donations have poured in, with volunteers sorting through piles and piles of donated clothing and other household items, so flood victims will be able to easily find what they need. Now, the shelter is also acting as a feeding station where victims and volunteers can stop in to eat. They also have a mobile food unit out visiting the affected areas. 13 families stayed at the shelter last night, and they say they'll be there as long as they're needed. A lot of people have been very hard hit here in Waynesville, but the community is pitching in.
Unbelievable. It has been unbelievable. And in fact, the Red Cross guy, I heard someone say up there, if I was ever in a disaster, I hope it's in this county. Because I went up to the St. Robert Community Center. It is full of clothes. It is full of donations.
The Waynesville mayor says they are hoping for some state aid to help victims here. Now, the evacuation order for those flooded areas is being lifted tonight at 5 o'clock so victims can get back in and start cleaning up. Of course, they urge everyone to be careful as folks here are still watching the weather and the creek levels very carefully. In Waynesville, Linda Russell, KY3 News.
And last night, thanks to another round of heavy rain, even more areas that are typically not prone to flood in Phelps County, as well as Pulaski County and Marys County, dealt with flooding very early this morning, including the small town of Newburgh. That's just outside Raleigh, if you're familiar with that area. The main street in Newburgh, which is a historic main street, faced very significant flooding this morning around 4 a.m. Police in the small town of Newburgh, as well as volunteer firefighters, started going door to door trying to get people out of their homes at 4 a.m. as that water started to enter their homes. There is a creek that flows through that main area in Newburgh, and it was that creek that started overflowing. About 20 homes were affected, as well as many more businesses. Now, that was a case of flash flooding, and the water there did recede very quickly. According to the Phelps County Sheriff, it started going back down later in the morning, and later today people were able to get back inside their homes and see just how extensive the damage was there, and they have started the cleanup in Newburgh. Now, the creek that overflowed in Newburgh is a creek that feeds into the Big Piney. The Big Piney, of course, is what flooded onto Interstate 44 today, shutting parts of it down and creating quite the unexpected problems for travelers, especially those traveling through the state who were not familiar with the situation that's happening here, creating a lot of problems for those drivers. KY3's Ashley Reynolds shows us how traffic was backed up for many miles.
A 14-mile stretch of I-44 closed today. I want you to see what's going on behind me. We're here near the mile marker 150, just right before Fort Leonard Wood. Crews are trying to reroute drivers. Now, sometimes, as you can see, traffic comes to a complete stop, but most of the time it's moving, but at a very slow pace.
Well, I hope they get to going again a little bit.
Hopeful has turned into a headache.
Pretty bad deal. That's the way you can get through here.
MoDOT leaders say there are parts of the freeway where water has reached more than 6 feet high.
I don't guess we're going to get to today.
I set 3 hours. I thought it might be open, but it's not.
Trucker Rayford Simpson is trying to make it to Tennessee. What's your deadline to get to Tennessee?
Well, it's supposed to be there tomorrow.
What do you think's going to happen?
Looks like it's going to be a little bit late.
Nearby gas stations are packed as drivers make plans.
I have plans this evening in St. Louis, so it's like showering, getting dressed, getting ready to go, so everything's pushed back. I'm almost tempted to go home and try again tomorrow.
As for the locals,
I've been here for 20 years, and I've only seen it closed like this twice.
These images are reminders of what water can do. When was the last time you saw conditions like this?
Oh, probably 93 and 08. It's amazing how bad the nature can turn on people.
And once the water is down, MoDOT leaders fear they're going to have to get in there and clean up debris. They have to clear the interstate before it can be reopened. In Pulaski County, Ashley Reynolds, KY3 News.
Thanks, Ashley. It took us several hours as well to travel from Waynesville to Waynesville from Springfield today. It took us several hours due to the interstate closure that we faced, and we were right in that line of vehicles backed up for many miles outside Waynesville heading back toward Springfield. Now, even if you are from this area and you're familiar with the roads like I am, being from Pulaski County, doesn't make it any easier to try to get around in this type of situation, and that's because the flooding, of course, is not limited to the interstate. There are also highways as well as many side roads that are washed out, bridges that are closed, and of course MoDOT tries to keep us updated on those, but they are closing hour by hour, many of them in Phelps, Marys, and Pulaski County, including the Veterans Memorial Bridge on Highway 28. That's just outside Dixon, where MoDOT turned us around, as well as dozens of others.
I got here yesterday, and I knew I couldn't make it in yesterday. They had everything closed. So we thought we'd make a try at it today, so we're trying every angle we can get into to get to Dixon. My dad's down there in the rest home.
And we were trying to get to Jerome when we came upon that closure. We were taking really the long way around 28 over to Highway D, trying to get in to see the situation in Jerome. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it there today due to that closure. But what I can tell you is, unfortunately, the situation in Jerome has been worsening due to that heavy rainfall overnight. They were originally expecting the river there, the Gasconade, to crest at 27 or 28 feet. Well, that didn't happen. And as the rain continues to come down, the river continues to rise. They started evacuations yesterday morning. You'll remember about 6 o'clock in the morning. People loaded up their belongings as fast as they could onto trucks and trailers, moving them to an area they thought would be out of reach. It typically is, but the water rose so quickly last night that it overtook all of their things. Those trucks and trailers, we understand, according to the sheriff, were overtaken by the floodwaters, and right now that water is also very close to the second story of many of the homes there, the second story where many people had moved their belongings. Now it is expected to crest at 33 or 34 feet, and those houses are already starting to flood. There were even more evacuations in Jerome today in areas that typically do not flood, but again, the river there is yet to crest. Back here in Waynesville, the cleanup, of course, continues tonight. It will take some time. KY3's Destin Hodges shows us how the families are coping.
Downtown Waynesville is ridden with debris in the aftermath of Tuesday's flood and more rain Wednesday morning.
I think the biggest problem I noticed were the roads. The roads are so inundated from the water that there's nowhere for the water to go.
Jerry Anderson has a lot of cleaning up to do.
This property wasn't real bad,
and he considers himself one of the lucky ones.
The fence was tore down here. Basically, we just had water in the garage, and there was water coming up on the back deck. The other property back behind here, there's water in the basement. We've pumped it out twice. We're pumping it out again.
This is the first time this happened since I've ever been here. I've been here almost 13 years now.
Alan Gavins has seen flooding in the neighborhood before, but never this bad.
Unfortunately, this side of the street over here is the flood zone.
He says his side of the street usually fares better than his neighbors across the street.
It's always been like that. It's always had high water behind those houses. We don't really get affected as bad as the people on the other side of the street. I think the most water I had over here at any given time, maybe an inch to a two-inch margin. On that side, they can get up to 4 feet in their basement.
The floodwaters from Mitchell Creek behind me left a trail of debris and destruction through this neighborhood. It even washed out a chunk of this road here, leaving behind this big sinkhole.
We all work together to help each other out. You know, we come out, we talk, we have a good time, we throw little barbecues together, we do a little this and that. So it's pretty tight knit. It's just the fact that, wow, this is something we would have never have expected.
Now Alan and his neighbors will start cleaning up and start rebuilding together.
The first step in getting everything cleaned up is basically to get our focus on, you know, as a community, and work together to help each other out for the long haul, because we're not going anywhere. We love our city.
Volunteer nurses have also.
And back here live, we want to give you another look at the Ruby-Doo, where it has overflowed now into what is called the Ruby-Doo Park here. We're just on the other side of the historic courthouse building, as well as the old school. If you're familiar with this area in Waynesville, the water still receding. We expect it to continue to go down. That is, unless, of course, another round of rain comes, which is a very real possibility. Something I do want to share with you, we're showing you as much as we can, but as a news crew, we are in vehicles just like you are, and there are so many areas that we are unable to reach. We understand from a lot of the authorities here locally in Phelps County, as well as Pulaski and Marys County, that there are towns that are cut off right now, entire communities where people are sort of stranded on a hilltop or on the other side of a low water crossing, and they could be that way for another couple days, especially if the rain keeps coming down. So just a difficult situation here. Like we've mentioned before, many of the areas that have never flooded before are flooding now. We'll continue to keep you updated from Waynesville and Pulaski County, as well as the surrounding area, as cleanup efforts here continue. Reporting live in Waynesville, Emily Wood, KY3 News.
Emily Wood and company with our coverage of this historic and tragic flooding in Pulaski and Phelps County tonight. The rain overnight into the morning and then tapers off in the afternoon, following a pattern that we've seen over and over the last few days.
Chief Meteorologist Ron Hurst certainly has been watching it closely over the last few days. Ron, what's the latest?
Well, I'll tell you, let me put this in perspective for you. Some communities up around Pulaski County have had more rain in the last 3 days. We've had a report of over 17 inches of rain than you had for the entire year last year. That's how much rain we have had. Take a look at the graphic behind me. Now, this is the rainfall totals at our official reporting sites for the last 48 hours. You'll notice approaching 7 inches there at Osage Beach, 2 in Rolla, almost 4 in West Plains, just 3/4 of an inch here in Springfield. But there are many areas in Laclede, Pulaski, Texas, and southeastern Camden County that have had 10 to 15 inches of rain in the last 48 hours alone. And unfortunately, we have several other rounds of heavy rain that are headed towards the Ozarks. Right now, things are pretty quiet. There are a couple of sprinkles out there. Not much to look at, but later on tonight, we're going to ramp it up again. Flash flood watch remains in effect for southwest Missouri through Friday. A number of rivers are in flood and could only get worse if we get more rain. All right, plenty of clouds at 8 p.m. tonight and 77. Tomorrow we'll see the thunderstorms and the heavy rain, with the storms tapering off tomorrow afternoon. Look for a high temperature right around 80. All right, I'll give you my thoughts on the rain for Thursday morning, Friday morning, and Saturday morning when I come back.
Ron, we'll talk to you then. Next on KY3 News here at 5, soggy fields, the impact of unusually heavy rain on farmers this summer trying to grow crops here in the Ozarks.
And Water Wonder, the spectacle at Lake of the Ozarks that drew a crowd to Bagnell Dam.
You're watching KY3 News at 5 with Ethan Fortes, Emily Wood, Storm Team meteorologist Ron Hurst, and Lisa Rose with the Family Health Watch, the Ozarks' #1 newscast.
As with so many things in nature, a potentially destructive force can be beautiful if viewed from a safe distance. So it was today at the Lake of the Ozarks, where a torrent of water was released. Ameren UE opening 11 of Bagnell Dam's 12 floodgates. The event drawing a crowd to experience the spectacular sight and sound. Rain had raised the level of the lake to a foot above the maximum level of 660 feet. This morning's release was delayed as emergency crews evacuated homes and campsites along the downstream Osage River.
These wet conditions are also affecting our farmers. A local grower from Nixa who lives near the Finley River has gotten about 12 inches of rain just in the past month. Water is collecting on her fields and causing a portion of the crops to rot. She also says there are fewer bees and insects out pollinating the leaves on the plants, making them grow more slowly or not at all. Farmers market organizers say the ability of local farmers to adapt to the extreme weather conditions has helped minimize the rain's impact on the products available to customers.
You're planting this and you're ordering seed and you're getting the ground ready, and then you start those little plants and you put all your faith and hope in that little bitty plant and you put it out here and it's almost ready and everything looks beautiful, and it's like they're melting. They're just going to rot in the fields.
The effects of this wet weather could also spill over into next growing season. Around this time of year, farmers typically begin planting squash and cold crops, and this wet ground could affect how those crops grow as well. Weather pattern that's dropped all the rain will be hanging on for several more days.
Ron updates the rainfall totals and what's going to happen next in the Storm Team forecast.
And now, your KY3 Storm Team forecast.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but by looking at the weather charts, things are just not going to go well over the next couple of days. We have several rounds of heavy rain that are headed towards the Ozarks, and, well, you know, we've been talking about getting too much of a good thing, and certainly we have already surpassed that in many areas. All right, the big thing is to see how much rain is going to fall over the next 24 hours, and I want you to concentrate on southern Missouri because as we go through the night tonight, we're expecting another cluster of thunderstorms, and it looks like tonight's heavy rain is going to line up probably along Highway 60. Now, again, like the last several nights, it looks like it's going to be a band of very heavy rain, and I do think there's probably going to be like a general 1 to 3 across southern Missouri, but I do think there's going to be maybe 6-inch amounts in some of the highest areas, and so that's what we're going to have to be watching carefully. You'll notice this model pegs almost 5 inches of rain for West Plains by tomorrow afternoon. Now, that's not the only band of heavy rain that we're going to have. Once we get into Thursday night into Friday, a second band of heavy rain moves across the Ozarks, and this time it looks like it's going to shift into our northern counties. And notice the 48-hour rainfall totals north of Highway 54. We're talking an additional almost 4 inches of rain in Rolla, 5 in Osage Beach, almost 7 in Stockton, and almost 6.5 in Warsaw. Now, keep in mind, the models have been under forecasting rain by almost 50%. I think by the time we get to Saturday, I think it's quite likely, if these bands line up properly, there may be somebody in the Ozarks pick up an additional foot of rain, and that is going to be devastating. The ground cannot take that kind of moisture, so it is something that we're going to be monitoring very carefully. Now, here are some rainfall reports as of last Saturday, and again, this is from some of our Coco Ross reporters. Over 13 inches at Fort Leonard Wood, 12 inches at Brumley. Nevada's had more than 9 inches of rain. Edgar Springs, a little more than 8.5, and Rolla officially picking up 7 2/3 inches of rain. So again, once you get any rain started, it is all going to run off, and those rivers are going to rise very quickly. Keep in mind, those those crest forecasts that we're giving you are provided it does not rain anymore. If we get any additional rain, we'll have to advise those crests either higher or delay the onset of the crest. Either way, it is not good for folks who are suffering from this flooding situation. All right, let's go through the flash flood safety. We want you to abandon your vehicle. 2 feet of water can float a car. You know, that's why they're not driving on I-44. Have an evacuation plan and know how to get to higher ground. No, those are two very important things. And we understand from the National Weather Service, folks who have been showing up at the Red Cross centers up in Pulaski County have been coming in just wet and cold. They don't have an extra change of clothes. They don't have their medication. They haven't thought about what to do with their pets. And so right now, if you live in any kind of a flood zone, it is probably a good idea to kind of think about these last two and what you're going to do. What will you need? Will you need a change of clothes? You may need some insurance papers. So gather those up so that if you do have to evacuate quickly, you can have that information with you. Right now, no rain on the radar, although there may be a few sprinkles down here in Boone County. There may be some other scattered showers down here in northwest Arkansas as well. But it is later on tonight that we're going to watch this same area of the country out in here for thunderstorms to fire, and that'll start to take place around 10 or 11 o'clock. We'll start to see the first signs of that, and then we'll really get things going a couple of hours before sunrise, and that's why it is so dangerous. Now, here in Springfield, we've only had a ½ inch of rain today, but our monthly total is almost 4.5 inches alone. We're way over what we ought to have for the month of August, and only looks like there's more to come. So our forecast then for tonight, another round of showers and thunderstorms. Most of that is going to be up here in southern Missouri. Rain at times could be very heavy. Our overnight low 70 in Springfield, 74 in Harrison. Tomorrow, it's going to be sort of the same type of pattern where we'll have the rain in the morning and then maybe some decreasing cloud cover in the afternoon. Look for a high temperature about 80 in Springfield. Northern Arkansas will top out around 86. Now, Thursday night into Friday, we'll have another round of heavy thunderstorms, a high temperature of 82. A third round of heavy thunderstorms on Saturday morning and a high temperature of 83. We may get a break on Sunday, but Monday and Tuesday for sure, there could be 2 more rounds of heavy rain for the Ozarks before things begin to settle down. So, Jerry and Lisa, this is a very kind of dangerous, ominous forecast, and I urge folks to pay close attention to the weather.
Well, take what comes and hope you're wrong, but be prepared in case you're not. Thank you, Ron Hurst, for us tonight.
Other news of the day right after this.
That Cleveland home where the 3 women were held captive for years is now a pile of rubble.
Crews demolished the house today where Ariel Castro imprisoned the women, keeping them in chains and repeatedly raping them. One of the women, Michelle Knight, showed up before the demolition today and released some yellow balloons in the air. Castro will spend the rest of his life in prison.
And we're back right after this. That is our time for now. All the weather information you need to know anytime at KY3.com, on our mobile apps, and at the KY3 Facebook page.
And you need to stay up on this changing weather. Ron's certainly keeping an eye on it for us in the Storm Team Center. We will be back with more on KY3 News at 6 o'clock. See you then.
Good night.